Max Olson, theathletic.com, has nothing to do with the transfer portal, the NIL, all of what's going on with the NCAA, and yes, eventually football games starting this weekend, or eventually the semifinals. Max, have you ever seen so many things converge at one time?
Oh, gosh. Don't even ask me about the NCAA stuff, please. I literally do not have time for that today, guys. Literally. Now?
We won't. Has there anything in particular with the transfer portal surprised you with a player going one place or another?
I think that you're starting to see the quarterback market shake out a little bit here. You obviously saw Maalik Murphy go in yesterday for Texas. He's not officially in yet, but everyone's kind of expecting that. I think it's kind of decision time for some of the key guys out there. I think Cam Ward, what he decides to do between, Miami, Florida State, whoever else ends up being in the mix there, that's going to affect where Will Howard ends up and DJ and some of these other guys. I think while it's still early, I think as the commitments kind of start flying in here over the past few days, you're starting to see a few teams really emerge as the contenders for, I guess you'd say, Portal King this year. Been really impressed by what Notre Dame's done, not just getting Riley Leonard, but picking up good pieces at wide receiver, RJ Oben from Duke. I think they're doing a nice job. They've been pretty aggressive. I think you're seeing Ole Miss is about to make a run here and pick up some really good players. Some of these teams, Ole Miss, Oregon, Texas, Oklahoma, I think you're really seeing them step up here, and they're definitely invested in getting the good ones in the portal here. I really like what Texas Tech has done too. I think there's some Big 12 teams that have a chance to really benefit, and I think Texas Tech is off to a really sneaky good start here with some of the players they're picking up. But man, it is dizzying to follow, that's for sure.
Max, Cam Ward visiting FSU this weekend. So is DJ Uiagalelei. He's there as well. Let's just say Cam Ward takes another visit or two. How much does that push those guys waiting on whether, if they're option 2 to Cam Ward, like a Will Howard might be at Miami, to waiting or making a decision otherwise?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting little bit, like a little dance that we got here, especially because one factor that is kind of hanging over all of this is that when the dead period kicks in here next Monday, these transfers, they can't go take a bunch of official visits. You can go take the unpaid visit where you go tour a campus by yourself, but this is kind of the critical weekend here for these guys to take their OVs between now and early January. And so, I think on the school side, as much as you want to be in the Cam Ward Sweepstakes, it's kind of like, all right, we're going to need a decision here pretty quickly, because like if you're Miami and you've got Will Howard ready potentially, like do you take that commitment or you kind of keep fighting here? I think same thing with Florida State. Obviously, they've targeted DJ from the start since DJ went in the portal, and so while it's exciting to go head to head with Miami on this one, I think these are all pretty interconnected here, and it's time for these guys to make decisions. And if Cam Ward wants to take his time, I think that's going to make it complicated for some of these players. And as much as you understand Cam Ward, wanting to maximize the leverage and whatever the collectives are willing to pay and all that kind of stuff, I think that, you got to, these teams are kind of waiting on you to make a move so they can go get more players in the portal here, and others can figure it out. So that game of musical chairs is pretty real at that position. And I think we're going to start getting some answers here pretty soon.
So with all these dominoes starting to fall, Max, so what are your thoughts on Maalik Murphy joining the fray just yesterday? I mean, it's interesting just from a playoff standpoint, right, that he won't be available for Texas. It'll be Arch if something, God forbid, were to happen to Quinn. But now throwing his hat into the ring, would you presume that maybe he kind of already has an idea of what chair is still available? Or how do you view Maalik Murphy now jumping into the pool?
Yeah, first of all, I think that whole situation is unfortunate. I think that really sucks for both sides that, you kind of get it. This is the way the calendar is set up right now. But you wish that Maalik Murphy could stay with Texas and just wait and do this after Texas is done playing in the postseason. And so I get why, there's a bunch of different factors for him and his people that he's got to weigh here. But you wish that weren't the case when Texas is trying to make a run at a national championship. I think Maalik Murphy, it's interesting when you talk to personnel people on him. I think that going into the year, a lot of excitement, a guy that they really circled as somebody that is probably going in the portal and is going to get some pretty strong offers here. I think what he put on tape against Texas was maybe, or what he put on tape in his 2 starts for Texas, I think maybe a little bit of a, I don't want to say reality check, but just like a pretty good summary of like where he's at. He made some big time throws in those games against BYU, Kansas State. He made some mistakes against K-State in that game that went to overtime. Obviously, they won both those games, and he deserves a ton of credit for keeping them in the race. But I think teams are going to be very excited about the size, the big arm, the tools, just the potential there, and the fact that he's still a redshirt freshman. You can get a multi-year starter there. Where he goes, I think is super interesting because I think there's a few teams here that have been pretty quiet lately. I think, you talk to other people that are in the quarterback market, they want to know what Ohio State's going to do, and they want to know what USC is going to do. And I think Auburn's been quiet, even though I think Auburn's in the mix here too, like in the market. Some of these teams that you're kind of wondering, wait, who's their guy? Who, when you're kind of playing matchmaker here, hard to tell what they're going to do. And I think Maalik Murphy is going to be getting calls from those schools and plenty more.
So, Max, Dylan Raiola was in the news this week because the 5-star commitment to Georgia, apparently visiting Lincoln. Nebraska was talking to Kyle McCord. That appears to be now off. Are they going to screw this up and end up with nobody, including their commitment, the kid from Nebraska that was committed to Missouri?
I thought you were going to ask me, is Nebraska back?
No.
That was going to be my question.
No.
We're going to save that one for next week. Okay, got it. I think.
Come on.
I think that I think that things ending there with Kyle McCord is kind of tips things a little bit in terms of like probably hinting that things are looking good for Dylan Raiola in Nebraska.
Okay.
I certainly don't blame Danny Kaelin for taking the visit to Michigan State this weekend and trying to figure out his options, because when you're in the same class as the kid, and if Dylan Raiola were to come to Nebraska, everybody would want him to be the guy and the starter right away and stuff. I think that factors into all these decisions for the Nebraska quarterback situation, not to mention the guys that are already in the room. So I think, cautious optimism, it's looking good for Nebraska with Dylan Raiola. Obviously, you're going head to head with Georgia, and I think that's that's never an easy W by any means, but extremely interesting that this has popped up as we approach the signing day deadline here. Ultimately, did Dylan Raiola always want to be at Nebraska, or is it more a situation of, Carson Beck probably coming back at Georgia? You feel like there's a better path to playing time there, but by going to your dad's alma mater, that battle, I think if you're a Husker fan, you're very optimistic, but probably a little scary too. The fact that this might actually happen,
especially if he's using them to get more money from Georgia. That might be it too.
Yeah.
Well, who knows? Who knows? These are wild times.
Max, so do you think that Nebraska would still get a portal quarterback, just maybe not somebody to the level of Kyle McCord, if they do proceed with Raiola in that way?
I think at the start of December, I think the Nebraska perspective was we're going to go get a transfer quarterback, and we can afford a good one. You knew that Jeff Sims was going to be moving on. Obviously, that didn't work out, and they needed to go get one who they felt like, especially with the defense that they have, that if you go get a pretty steady quarterback who doesn't turn it over, got a chance to win a lot more games next year. I think the whole Dylan Raiola, that whole thing restarting was not something that was really anticipated by Matt Rule and his staff a couple of weeks ago. But now that door is open again, I think that he's extremely talented, and I think obviously the fan base wants that to happen. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like drop everything you're doing and go all in on this. I think that's kind of what this has turned out to be. So if you get him on board, it's going to affect the other guys in your room, and yeah, you're probably going to have to go find a veteran who can come in and fill out that room. But yeah, a lot to play out there.
Max, one of the decisions that has been made, there's a lot. We can spend all day just talking about the decisions already made, much less the ones that haven't been made. But Dylan Gabriel heading to his third school, playing for the Oregon Ducks, replacing Bo Nix. So what are your thoughts on that move?
I think it makes a lot of sense on both sides. And I don't think, I think it certainly seems to me like Oklahoma fans are excited for the Jackson Arnold era to get underway here, as much as Dylan Gabriel was, the all Big 12 quarterback this year and had his best season and everything. I think it's kind of a good deal for both sides, because I think, and Dylan Gabriel has said this, the reality of the situation is he didn't get invited to the Senior Bowl. I think the draft feedback was late round pick or possibly undrafted, as good as he was this year. And so that's a little bit scary for a guy that, even though he's been in college for a long time, you get that kind of feedback after having your best season yet. You're like, okay, well, we probably got to do something to improve that. And certainly you can make more money at Oregon next year than you would as a practice squad guy in the NFL. So I think it makes a ton of sense for Dillon Gabriel. And he's really, I think, the right fit for this Oregon team because I think they feel like they've got a lot coming back. And look, they might still go get Dante Moore to be the backup and be the future guy. But I think that's a team that didn't want to go take a guy who's a freshman or a sophomore and kind of develop a multi-year starter. I think they feel like, even though they're moving into the Big Ten and there's new challenges with that, I think they feel ready, like they're ready to run it back here and contend for a playoff spot next year in the 12 team. And so you want to go get a veteran who you really trust can do it at a high level to replace Bo Nix. And I think Dillon Gabriel is kind of a perfect option there if that's what you're trying to do.
Max, is the schedule of the early signing day, the opt-outs, the transfer portal, and everything else above, plus the 12-team playoff starting next year, sustainable?
No, definitely not. No, it's gonna cause problems. You think about it, like, Willie Fritz takes the Houston job this year. If Tulane's like the 12th seed in that playoff, is he just like stuck in that job? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what how is the timing going to work on some of these, even just with the coaching carousel? And are guys going to be like willing to leave their job when their team's in the playoffs to go take another job? Like we saw Brian Kelly leave Notre Dame for LSU. Like it's hard to picture that, but it's not impossible. I think that you've got that problem. I think you've got, ultimately as December just continues to get absolutely dominated by the transfer portal, something that's great for high school recruiting. And I think ultimately, like it should, if the leaders are being forward thinking, I think it's time to start talking a little bit more seriously about, do you do like an end of July signing period and just let these guys get it out of the way and then have another one in February or something like that? Because I just don't think the December signing period is, I think that is making less and less sense the way this is developed. And I mean, you've got coaching staffs that are traveling to bowl sites while also trying to like take commitments from the portal and do in-homes and stuff like that. It's just really chaotic. And I think the 12 team is going to make that worse for sure.
Max Olson. Paul, anything else?
No. Other than Max,
Paul, which quarterback do you want at Florida State? Yeah. Cam Ward, without a doubt.
Yeah, I would say Cam. Like I wouldn't mind. Like I'm not going to complain about either one, but Cam Ward would be the one. I think he's got the higher ceiling. And I hope that he's not the kind of guy that's just swayed by having dinner at a fancy restaurant with a big time rapper.
Rick Ross, the boss.
Yeah. Like I don't know what FSU can roll out in that rig. I mean, we got T-Pain, so maybe we can get T-Pain. So
T-Pain, okay, that's a good offering. Yeah, it's wild to just even keep up with like where are these guys even visiting, because these things just develop so quickly. And I don't know. Do we even know who's the Baylor quarterback next year?
Well,
I guess we'll know a week or two from now, right?
Yeah.
Do we even know?
DeQuan Finn's on campus right now, we think.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
probably. If it's not him, then who the heck knows? If it's not him, then I'm not sure.
If they didn't call at least whoever's handling Maalik Murphy, that would be silly not to. I mean, I think they should at least contact him, whether or not that fits or not, or he's interested or not.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I don't envy that situation for Spav to get that job, and before you even really assess your roster and what you're going to do, you're just like, all right, go get a quarterback. So. Well, I'm interested to see kind of, certainly you can tailor it to some of these guys like Finn is a really dynamic athlete. And I think he can tailor things to what he does a little bit, but very, very, very up in the air there in terms of offensive identity when you don't have the QB yet.
Yeah. I mean, on that, it does seem now, I guess like it was about 2 weeks ago, but shoot, Blake Shapen, to Mississippi State, small world that he ends up with Jeff Lebby. Yeah, I guess that seemed like it was forever ago, but shoot, what are your thoughts on Blake Shapen heading down to Starkville to play for Jeff Lebby?
How many, I was just writing about Will Howard earlier today, how many quarterbacks that have played in Big 12 title games have transferred? That's those two, Spencer Sanders, the list goes on. It's crazy. I think that especially with kind of the way this market is setting up, and you kind of know which guys are in, but you don't totally know who all is going in. I thought it was interesting that Jeff Lebby moved pretty quickly to go get who he thinks is his guy. I think the thing with Shapen is just in talking to other coaches, really like his moxie. I think his good football, like his good tape, is pretty good. And I think certainly that offensive system, like it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that team, that offense comes together, because they've lost a lot in the portal, as you'd expect after a coaching change. Their running back Woody Marks is one of the top running backs available in the portal. They've lost some wideouts, so Jeff Levy facing a big reload there in terms of getting playmakers to support Blake Shapen. So I think fresh start probably a good thing for him, but very TBD in terms of who he's playing with there.
Max, great stuff as always. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Max Olson, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports, at a mouthful.